Guten Tag. My little bit of learning of German is basically the reason that Robert is here today. After Becky and I did our excellent ride across Lake Constance in a Zeppelin, Becky was back at the museum doing more research to add to her wonderful museum here. And I'm shopping, what's more important, a museum or shopping? Well, it was shopping. I was in a store. My German wasn't quite getting me what I wanted to purchase. A gentleman came up and helped me get my purchase. Before I knew it, I was out on the streets meeting Robert, and I got Robert and Becky connected, and that's how the story goes. And I'd like everyone to meet Robert von Zeppelin, our guest for today.
Use the microphone or
no?
Okay, because it's small area here. Can you all hear me? Okay, this is good. I have trouble with the camera here. Oh, okay.
So you're gonna have to talk so the camera can hear you.
Well. Yeah.
Get it lower.
Well, I'm good.
If you wanna walk, we can move. You want what, handheld? I got a handheld.
No, that's.
No? All right.
I just do better by walking around a little, but that's.
I got you now. You can walk around.
Okay, that makes work for me. But the thing is, I'm related to Ferdinand Graf von Zeppelin, who is basically the inventor of the rigid airship. Before his time, you had the pressurized airship, was still in existence today. I am a great-great-grand-nephew of Graf von Zeppelin. And basically, the family originated in Mecklenburg, Germany, in the year 1286. And that's where the family, basically where some of the family still lives today. And it got down to, at one time, there was one family member alive, and that was Wohlrath. And luckily, he had two sons, Johann and Melchior. And Johann's line died out eventually. The name just died out because of they had women and they married in, and the name just dies. And that's what's happening in the family today, where a lot of people have had just women and the name doesn't be carried on. And we have two lines, they're dying out because of that. But the thing is, Melchior had 6 sons, and this is basically the 6 lines in the family that exist today. They still exist today. This is back in 1764, and I'm from Wohlrath Gasta, which is the oldest son of Melchior. And Ferdinand Graf von Zeppelin is descended from Ferdinand, who was the 5th son of Melchior. And so there's 5 lines that exist today, and 1 line has died out. So we have 5 lines. And the name was originally with 1 P instead of 2 Ps. And in the 1790s, early 1800s, 3 of the Zeppelins migrated from Mecklenburg to Wittenberg. And that's going from north to south. And when you get down south, you're into Swabian territory. And one of them was Wohlrath, one related to Ferdinand and Johann Karl. And when it got down south, they added the 2nd P, and it was in a double P. You have the Ein P, we call it, and this wide P in the name. But the name originally is with 1 P, not the 2 Ps. And Ferdinand is related to Ferdinand, who went down south. And his great-grandfather basically was a minister for the king of Wittenberg. And Wohlrath, who I'm related to, was the forester and also the engineer or the buildings keeper for the king of Wittenberg, Frederick III. And also Johann Karl. When he went down, he became the minister of the interior for the king of Wittenberg, Frederick III. So all 3 of them were in the royal entourage, basically. And they stayed there, and they had the double P. And so basically, and the rest of the Ein P, they call it, were up north. But now, a lot of the Ein Ps are down south in Freiburg, and also in Forsyth. So they're all over Germany, but they still keep the INP and his YP. So if you ever see the INP, you know that's the original name. The name is written Zeppelin, parentheses, Zeppelin, formal name. So the double P is really the secondary name. Ferdinand Graf von Zeppelin was born on Lake Constance. Has anybody been to Germany or familiar with Germany? And okay, the Bodensee or Lake Constance is right on the southern border of Germany. As you cross the lake, you got Switzerland. You look to the west, you got Austria. And you got the Swiss Alps and the Austrian Alps. Beautiful, beautiful territory there. And that's where he was born. He was born in Constance. And he was born in what you call it was a monastery at one time. And it's still there. It's still right on the lake. Has anybody here been in Constance? Okay, you know that hotel just to the right for the comes in? I forget the Hop and Hop.
Right.
Yeah.
We went over there. We were gas boiling in Germany.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
went down there and went around. Actually, this gentleman just got up.
Oh,
drove around
okay,
Lake
okay.
Constance.
So you seen the hotel there?
I did.
Yeah, it's
I
on the right.
I vaguely remember.
Yeah, okay, it's right on the right.
Right.
And that's where he was born.
Okay.
And I was in the hotel, and it was back in 1988, and you go through there, and they have the room, basically the room he was born in, and they have a plaque over it, and this is where Ferdinand von Zeppelin was born in this room. But at that time, his father was running it was a calico factory. And he lived there, I think, the first 5 years of his life. And then his parents inherited the estate of Gilsberg, which was just about 3 or 4 miles or kilometers down the road, and that was in Switzerland. It's right on the border. And Gilsberg today is still in existence, and I've seen pictures of it over 100 years ago, and he was even living there. And you can go into the area, see Gilsberg, and it looks the same today as when he was living there. Exactly the same, except for a few trees that could, saw down and all, but it's exactly the same. You look at it and say, you're looking at you like you're going back in history. And you can look around and say, this is where he played, this is where he grew up and everything. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a funny feeling when you see that. You don't see that here too often in the United States. But the thing is, he lived there for the first 15 years of his life. He was homeschooled there until 15. And his father basically was an industrialist. And a lot of the family history was into military. Most of the family members were in the Navy or the Army. And I should say the early members of the family were knights back in the 1200s, 1300s, fought in the Crusades and everything else. And that's how they got a lot of the land that they had in Mecklenburg that they lost under other conditions. As Graf Zeppelin said, they gambled it away and drank it away. But there were still a few estates left there until after World War II. But that's how basically they got what money and what land they had. They served the kings of that time as knights, and then they kept into the military. And basically, you look back then, at that time, you had 2 job opportunities, the priesthood or military, and they chose the military. So he spent the early years of his life there. Then he went up to Stuttgart at the Stuttgart Military University for 2 years. College basically is a preparatory school for 2 years in Stuttgart. And then he went 3 years to the Stuttgart Military Academy. And now he's approaching about 20 years old. And he graduated from there, and he spent 1 year at Tübingen University, getting a little bit more of engineering subjects. And at this time, it was a military career that he was going to be pursuing. And you just don't know when you meet somebody and how it's going to play out in later years. And you see somebody, you say, you always try to treat everybody as nice as you can, because you don't know in later years how it's going to turn out, how these people can help you or screw you. Let's put it that way. So his first mission, basic assignment, was as a junior staff officer on the King of Wittenberg's staff, King Charles. And he taught him a lot about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And it was a good job, and as he learned a lot of what a young officer should do, and basically how he should keep his nose clean and how to move up the line. And also he was meeting people of influence at this time, which a lot of people in his position would not have at this stage of the game. So he did this for about 2 years, and then he thought about, I would like to see how other militaries operate. I'm stuck here in Wittenberg. This is a small flea, and there's a big dog out there. And he said, I would like to go to other countries and see how they operate. And so, and he had the permission of the king, and he went to England, Denmark, Austria, France, and Italy. And by this time, the Civil War in the United States was really, he said, this is the place to go to see how it actually